If you like music and you like podcasts and you like to laugh and you like to learn, you need to immediately subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we dive deep into the story and back catalog of a one-hit wonder band or artist. From there, we have a good, healthy discussion as to whether they brought the one-hit thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. We have a huge back catalog, and we've done episodes on everything from Don't Worry, Be Happy and the Macarena to King of Wishful Thinking and Cumbersome. I promise you're going to love the show more than Jaquan loved getting tipsy, and even more than Bobby Boris Pickett loved making alternate versions of the Monster Mash. Subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts.
I got my alligator boots, I wear my pants skin tight, I wear my dark sunglasses in the middle of the night, and when I look in the mirror, I was such an awesome sight. It makes me want to kneel down and pray. I'm so adorable and charming.
So, at this point in time, we've already played our hands on what our top originals are on this album.
Yeah, poor Groovy Guy doesn't stand a chance.
No, such a Groovy Guy is a rough one. Here's what the old Wikipedia had to say about this.
Okay.
Such a Groovy Guy parodies narcissism, specifically noting fashion, demeanor, dominance, and submission, and a relationship breakup. Now, here's where the weird story comes in.
Okay.
Yankovic said he wrote the song for a woman that he was dating as an homage to her previous boyfriend, who, upon being broken up with, asked her, "But I'm such a groovy guy. Why would you break up with me?"
Oh, wow.
Out of concern for the individual not being aware of his status, Yankovic did not identify him ever.
Interesting.
But I wrote down that this song, and this is a horror reference for you,
Okay.
for sure. This both reminds me of a song that you would hear in the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes movie, but also feels like it could legitimately be about Patrick Bateman at the exact same time.
It does have that energy for sure.
And it gets dark. Like, the last verse of this song is actually like horror movie level dark, and I want to build to it. But the beginning, he describes this groovy guy as alligator boots, pants skin tight, and dark sunglasses in the middle of the night. Sounds pretty groovy to me.
Pretty groovy. Well, it's also like we just were talking about I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, and it definitely seems like the groovy guy in this is very much embodying a lot of the characteristics that Al was pushing up against in that song. Fancy clothes, fancy dress, just like someone who thinks that they are super hip.
Could you think of more evidence that this album is a punk rock album than writing a song like this about your current girlfriend's last boyfriend?
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting. And again, almost like Al is so known for not being mean-spirited. It's part of what makes him so beloved. And this is like inherently like it's your current girlfriend's ex. Like, you've already won, dude. Like,
this is a mean album.
It really is. It really is.
Buckingham Blues, I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead.
Yeah.
Checks in the Mail has so much bitterness in it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the 1-2 punch of this and the closer. Like, it is a dark, demented, mean-spirited
It
record.
really, really is. Yeah. And again, it's interesting because, you never would think this. And it's still, I'm not going to like really follow through on this theory too much, but the songs on this record do almost feel like they have connective tissue throughout them. Like, this is about very particular, multiple songs about the same person, scenario, or just life events for Al. Like it feels very pointed and not random, some of the stuff that he's talking about here.
Yeah. I think of this weird idea of like, obviously you watched Freaks and Geeks.
Yes.
Right. And there's that amazing episode where James Franco goes to a punk show for the first time.
Yes.
And it's like the first time that he like really feels like he's around people that he can connect with, and that like they understand what's going on in his life a little bit.
Totally.
I imagine like a young Weird Al discovering like that CBGB's type of punk music and that early new wave type of music.
Yeah.
And wanting to do that, but being like, the only thing I'm armed with is an accordion. and finding a way to like, this album really does capture that energy. Like I feel like we stress it every other episode, but it is such a grimy punk angry album.
It is. And I mean, and you know, musically this song is definitely interesting. It's not quite as interesting as some of the other ones we have talked about. It is tricky. This is another showcase for Steve J on the bass. This is a real there's a lot of fast riffy stuff going on in this song. He and Al are like kind of trading licks on accordion and bass, which this album is loaded with. Another sort of showcase musically still, but accompanying, like these angry punk rock lyrics. Like it is, the juxtaposition of those two things is very compelling to me. I do like, this is not, I mean, we've already sort of, like we said, we've revealed our hand because we've already picked favorites from this record. So this is not like a favorite for me, but
Not my least favorite.
It's not my least favorite. No, because it is weird and interesting and dark, and I want to get into some of those lyrics. You hinted at it before, but
yeah, I mean, let's get we'll at least tackle them because there's a lot to say here.
Yeah,
is that the last verse before the chorus kind of just repeats itself into eternity turns real dark, and it says, "And then I might decide to tie you up with dental floss and make you wear a harness and show you who's the boss. Of course, if you refuse, well then, honey, it's your loss. I mean, I wouldn't do this with just anyone."
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of characters throughout Al's records where when you just look at the lyrics on paper, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we've already referenced, and we're going to get to all these songs, like Good Old Days, some very dark lyrics. I Remember Larry. There's moments in his catalog where it is staggering. The horrifying imagery that he writes with.
He's not someone that you would think of to put on at Halloween time, but he has plenty of songs that if you were just like, are you familiar with an artist named D.A. Stern?
No.
I've never heard of him either. My brother sent me a 2-song EP that he released on Spotify that is just lo-fi covers of 2 Weird Al songs.
Really?
Those songs kind of stripped down and done very sincerely are very unsettling.
Yeah. Even, I mean, there's just a lot of like scary characters in his songs, like, and they run the gamut because I just named some really intense ones. This, I think, qualifies as a really intense one. But he often, like Melanie, I mean, there's a lot of like disturbing people that he talks about, and he often writes about them in the first person, which like as if he is these people. And yeah, I mean, you know, so much of his imagery, like, you know, even as a devotee of his music and someone who identifies with the originals more than the parodies, I still, in my mind, he's still like, you know, eat it, get yourself an egg and beat it guy. Like that's like how I see him.
That's how you perceive him.
Yeah. And then some of these lyrics are just like, man, I really think like so much of I have a very dark sense of humor. And now taking a close look at Al's lyrics that I've been hearing since I was a child, I was like, I think this might have played a large part in that.
You know what? But the other thing that we have to factor in too is that we're still really early into his music video life, because his music videos also get violenter and violenter as time goes on. Like, I remember when I watched that VHS tape that we talked about in the first episode, like there were moments that my sister would look away because she didn't like what she was seeing. And like UHF has like 2 or 3. I remember the story behind UHF was it was shot to be a PG movie.
Yeah.
And the MPAA gave it a PG-13 rating because there was like 2 or 3 really violent scenes, and Al would not cut them. He's like, no, this is my movie.
Yeah, there is definitely some real morbid curiosity in Al's writing and in the characters that he comes up with in these songs, which I love. I mean, I think it's just, that's my nature as well. We're both horror movie fans as well. I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this are going to have this sort of a cross section here where you, for whatever reason in our brains, these things are just like hit similar, I don't know, like pleasure centers, I guess you could call it. I don't know why, but they do. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I keep saying the same thing, but it's endlessly fascinating to me the way that he writes some of these songs and how incredibly grim they get. I mean, even like the verse before, like this, he does this a lot, like the building up, like it gets worse and worse
Yeah.
As the song goes on, because the verse before that is like, baby, are you in the mood for a little romance? Well, for starters, I could pour some chocolate pudding down your pants. That's very cute and funny.
Yeah.
And then attach electrodes to your brain and watch you dance.
Yeah. Like,
well, golly, wouldn't that be fun? Like, man, like it's really like he turns on a dime.
There is like an early Peter Jackson, Sam Raimi sense of comedy in Weird Al, where it's like, you watch those movies, if you're a horror fan, you watch those movies and it's like Dead Alive, depending on how into horror movies you are, it is either like legitimately upsetting how gory it is, or it's hysterical because it's like Three Stooges level over the top.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you show that movie to someone who does not watch horror movies, they are not going to find anything funny about it.
No,
they're going to be like, this
true.
is disgusting. And I think that is, Weird Al is firmly in that bucket where it's like violence when it's cartoonish to the point that it's... Weird Al's violence is something that I do love to see, is like when people try to do like a Looney Tunes level of violence in real life in a movie. It's always fascinating, right? Or
totally.
I think you've seen like people have done the videos where it's like Home Alone with blood, where they like just take the movie Home Alone and add like blood splatter to like whenever they get hit with stuff.
Yeah.
Like there is this, like you said, it's a morbid curiosity. But man, this might be the darkest he's ever written. Because this is fucked. Like
this is super, super dark. I mean, it would be interesting, and as we go on, we can compare, because I'm thinking of particular phrases and lyrics in songs like Good Old Days and in songs like I Remember Larry, and it's like there is some pretty gnarly language in some of these songs, or the extra gory version of Night Santa Went Crazy. I mean that's another interesting, like we could rank Al's songs in terms of violence.
Well, I think that the difference with like a lot of the like, I think the problem that sits with Such a Groovy Guy to me that doesn't hit as hard with a lot of those other ones is like the absurdist level of a lot of them, like doing Those Were the Good Old Days in this like very James Taylor, like upbeat singer songwriter type vibe. Like it's like a beautiful juxtaposition.
Yeah.
The music of Such a Groovy Guy isn't that far off from just like the general tone of
That's true.
the person.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think that it lacks that juxtaposition divide that really like separates the fucked up lyrics from everything else.
No, you are right about that. That is like a part of what makes those other ones interesting, is that sort of disconnect of the two things. And this is just a straight song about an absolute psychopath.
About an absolute psychopath that like, obviously maybe their lyrics wouldn't be this up front, but it's like we talked about butt rock recently, but Nickelback literally has a song. It's like, I like your pants around your feet. Like, you're telling me that's not that far off from like some of these lyrics.
Yeah, no,
like,
you're right. You're
like,
right.
There's this weird level of like misogynistic submissiveness that he's mocking in this, but it's done in a style of music where it doesn't feel that separated from it.
No, it doesn't.
In the way that like Those Were the Good Old Days does feel really separated from it.
You're right, because that is a fair point, because those other ones are clearly more abstract. And this, I mean, you just said, like, he has straight up said that this is about a real person. Like, I mean, that's like, I can appreciate, I'm like, in hindsight, it's almost like, thank God he didn't say who this was. Like, what a nightmare.
And I'm sure he pushed it to an absurd level, but it is like... If that is true, if the direct quote is, why would you break up with me? I'm such a groovy guy. I feel like that tells you everything you ever need to hear about who this person was.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does paint a picture, and I can appreciate the fact that a young Al heard that line and was like, oh, that's so good. I have to like do something with that. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. And maybe, again, it's interesting from a listener's perspective, because you really don't know the motivation. These songs on this record, we talked about how they have a lot of connective tissue, and they feel like these songs feel more personal. And maybe that's touching on the thing you were saying about how this song feels so dark, because it feels personal as well as dark. Again, I'm just like, we were talking about it earlier, and like taking a quick peek at the track list for In 3D.
Yeah.
And at least up front, these songs do not seem personal.
Yeah.
Like he moves in another direction, and it just becomes about like more broad ideas and subjects and topics. And this record clearly seems like it comes from a real place. And this song, all of this stuff comes from a real place in his life, actual events, which makes the harsh language all the more kind of stunning to hear and see on the page.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting one. It's definitely, I would say that while it's not my least favorite of it, I feel like it's also weirdly probably the one I would listen to the least in a strange way. Like,
yeah, maybe because you're at this point on the record, we've like touched on a lot of really, really great stuff, and we're one song away from a really, I'll say it right now, we're one song away from a very satisfying closer.
Oh yeah, I think we're in agreement of what our number 2 song is.
Yeah,
on this album, but...
and so that's that's coming down the pipe, and this again. It's funny, I'm actually going to take a quick look because I don't know how long this song is in my mind. Oh, 3:03. I would have thought it was longer than that. That's not very long. And for what it's worth, we were talking about several episodes ago. This is now, I'm going back a significant amount. Stop Dragging My Car Around is only 3 minutes and 16 seconds long, which in my mind feels so much longer than that.
There's really no long songs on this album. Honestly,
No.
I think they're all about 3 minutes or less, which honestly, when you're dealing with comedy, is the right decision.
I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead is the longest, but for me, I don't feel that because I feel like it has so many musical ideas crammed into it that it doesn't feel long.
Yeah, and even then, it's 3:30. You know what I mean? Like it's not
exactly.
It's not
that's
anything insane.
It's not
especially when we're thinking about post 90s Al, where he has these closing tracks that are sometimes double-digit minute length.
Oh yeah.
But he makes it work, which is also crazy. That it's like that I could listen to Albuquerque the amount of times I've listened to Albuquerque and be fine with it.
Oh my God. I'm just, boy, is that, how is that not going to be a long episode when we get to it?
Oh yeah.
That one's going to go forever. Yeah. So we're sort of dancing around it here, but I think this is a totally serviceable, definitely not the worst parody or original on this record. Probably more interesting conceptually than it is just to like actually play and enjoy.
Yeah. So where do you think you're going to rank this? Because I'm making the decision that mine is going right after Happy Birthday, but above Buckingham Blues for me. You've got yours ranked a little bit differently. So yours is I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead, Checks in the Mail, Happy Birthday, Got a Boogie, Buckingham Blues.
Yeah, I'm putting it above Buckingham Blues.
Okay, so still Got a Boogie ranking higher than
I still am going to put, yeah. I know that by the end Got a Boogie is going to be low, but I really want to continue to express my defense of that song because I think it's fun. I don't know. I have fun with that.
All right. Well,
bass players out there, learn the bass line for Got a Boogie. You're going to have a great time. Trust me. It's a great warm-up exercise. Do it.
And Matt, next week, we wrap up our first album of Weird Al's catalog.
Man, it's crazy.
It's been a hell of a day.
It's been a crazy time. And we only have 180 something songs left or whatever it is. So
we'll be fine.
It's going to be over before we know it.
Plus a couple movies and TV show appearances and other stuff.
Yeah.
We're here to entertain you. We'll sing your song.
Hey there, are you obsessed with things that happened before your time? Well, if you are, join me, the host of Before My Time, Kelsey Laurie, to discuss the wonders of the yesteryears that we weren't around to enjoy ourselves. You can find us on all podcast platforms.
Dixieland's a playing, soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.